Let's just kind of recap where you are and why you're here. You applied for the application for the HWRI back in, I guess, 2016. The applications were reviewed and the awards were made, and it was a multi-year contract, a 2-year contract. So what happened was in year 1, a lot of programs probably had their amounts reduced. So you had to go in and edit some things in your contract, in your property, in your, your budget properties. And there's a couple other things you had to do. And then you had to get them signed. And now we're basically on to year 2 and doing essentially the same thing. Right now, if they haven't been sent to you, they're in what's called program manager review, where the program manager will take care of their tasks and then send it to you. And when the contract is sent to you in the gateway, you've got 2 tasks that'll happen. The first one is this contract info requested. I think it'll actually say contract info requested new period, because now we're on the second period, the second year of your contract. So what's going to happen here is you're going to need to make some changes and some updates. You might have to make some changes in your budget. Your year 1 budget carried over into year 2. Well, year 2 might be different now. There's a different award amount and probably some different tasks that you're doing. And if that's the case, you go in there and you make those changes. And the example that I'm going to show you will have that. The other thing you're going to do is maybe attach some updated documents. So maybe your workers' comp has expired or some insurance needs to be updated or something like that. If that's the case, you need to attach those to your Grants Gateway contract as well, so that the program manager and contract managers can work with those. So once you do those, you can send your contract back. You would submit it. And when you submit it, it gets worked on by the program manager some more, the contract manager some more, just like what you had before your first period. And then they send it back to you for this grantee contract signature required. So when it gets sent to you the second time, the second task here that I just marked off, that's when everything is locked in and everybody's happy with the way it looks, and it's now time to just get signatures. And like I said, we have to allot maybe, more than 30 days really for this process to happen, because what happens is you sign it, or someone at your organization signs it, and then somebody at the state agency signs it. So actually the good thing, now that I think about it, these don't have to go to the state controller's office or the attorney general's office, because it's a year 2 of multi-year contract. So that will cut down the time that we need actually significantly. But again, still, you're trying to do it as quick as you can. All right, so we'll do those tasks in the system here. And if you've been to this webinar before or have seen this, this is just pointing out that we can go back and forth between these stages if we wanted to. It's going to start in the program manager review, and it's going to get sent to you here on the right to this contract info requested. You'll work on it and you'll send it back to the program manager. But it can always come back to you, and you can always send it back if you have to kind of do a little back and forth updating it. Eventually, program manager is happy with it and sends it down here to the contract manager. Again, there could be some back and forth between them, but finally, once the program manager approves it and everything looks good, that's when it gets sent to you to get signed. So I really wanted to make sure this was pointed out again, and if you made it through the first time, hopefully you've got this nailed down, but just in case, you need to be aware of the grantee user roles. If somebody's changed roles in your organization or has left the organization, you might need to make some updates. And the person that updates the accounts is this person down here in the bottom left. That's that grantee delegated administrator. They can add or edit user accounts, and they can manage pre-qualification. That's the document vault. We're not going to get into the document vault here right now, but realize that is something you still have to keep up with on a yearly basis. So if you're not pre-qualified, you do need to make sure that your organization is pre-qualified. Otherwise, the grantee delegated admin just manages these accounts. And you might remember the accounts that you have. The grantee, if you remember, was somebody who could start an application and edit an application and edit contract information. But they can't submit an application. We're beyond the application now, but they can submit contract information. So the grantee, someone in the grantee role can actually work on what they need to in the contract here. You can update the budget, update the work plan, whatever it happens to be. What they can't do is when it comes time to that second task, which is to sign it, and that's what these 2 people on the right can do, the grantee contract signatory and the grantee system administrator. So as long as you have one of those roles at your organization, and that's the right person, that person can electronically sign the contracts. So they can certainly do the same things that the grantee could do. They can edit the contract information, they could edit the work plan and budget. So you don't need to have a grantee. At the minimum, you need either a grantee contract signatory or a grantee system administrator. Again, I'm hoping this is kind of old information to you because you went through it last year, or even more recently because you had some modifications. But just be aware to make sure you have the right person in the right role to get that signed. Okay, so again, you might have some tasks, but you might not have some tasks. And you would have a task if your name is tied to the application. Maybe you were the one that applied for it or signed for the application, or you were the one that actually signed the contract before. But maybe it's a different person, or maybe that person was never tied to it, and they wouldn't get the task. Well, even if you don't get a task in the system, which means you get an email, you'll still be able to log in and find it. Okay, so the easiest way is if you do have a task, on the home page there's this My Tasks and the Open Tasks button. That'll allow you to get directly to this contract and start working at it in the Forms menu. The other way, though, is to search for tasks. And there's something in the top in the search fields where you can search for tasks. You can also search for the contract or even application if you wanted to. But maybe you're a new person and the task was assigned to somebody else at your organization and you need to find this contract. That's a way of doing it. So I'll show you when I get into the system how to do that. But I'm pointing it out on this slide here, these three areas in the top. Applications, contracts, and tasks, that's where you can actually search for those items. So you could search for tasks or you could search for contracts. And if this is your only contract with the state or with DOH, it'll be pretty easy to find. Otherwise, there's some categories or some search fields that you could narrow your search down by. Down in the bottom left here is what I was pointing to on that previous slide, the open tasks, which again, if you were assigned the task, that's the easiest way of dealing with it. Just click on open tasks and boom, you're into the contract. Okay, so you are going to need to sign in and either find it in your tasks or search for your contract. There is a period schedule report. You might have utilized this before. I just like to point it out here just to know it's on the home page of the contract. If you wanted to know what it is, it's basically saying these are the days we scheduled for things to happen, and this is how many days it's actually taking. So sometimes you're over, sometimes you're under. You know, this is just basically helping you understand and helping us realize our drive to get these done by really December 31st. So this will help you see, oh, where is it, you know, how many days is it, things like that. So it's separated into two sections, the contract development section and then the approval, the signature section. Now for you, you're not going to have to, you're not going to see it going to, I know these are small probably to read, but you're not going to see them going to OSC and SFS and the Attorney General. So the schedule will be a little shorter for yours right now. So if you were wondering about the statuses, what's going on, if you see it in Program Manager Review, it's what it sounds like. The Program Manager is reviewing the contract details, looking at or editing something. Contract information requested, that's where you're going to be doing all of your work. That's what we're going to look at in a few minutes. Contract Manager Review, once you submit it, once it gets forwarded to the Contract Manager, they can edit it, excuse me, they can edit it and do the same things really that the Program Manager could do. Then it moves on to some other review roles. Department of Health doesn't do this contract and internal review. That was supposed to be a wide X there. But then again, it gets sent to you to get signed, the agency signs it, and then it moves on through getting executed. So again, for your second period, all these on the bottom you won't have to worry about or you won't see happening because these are for the initial contract, not for your second year of the contract. So really, this is all marked up here, but it's these first 4 steps that you'll see. Okay, so that was just like I said, a couple slides I wanted to go through just to get an overview and remind you of kind of where we are. And you can see that I have a new task. So I've logged in. It says, welcome, Jeff. I'm a Grantee System Administrator. And if you remember, that's one of those roles that can sign contracts and work on contract details. I could have also been a grantee or a grantee contract signatory. So the search buttons are up here on the top. I could search for applications, contracts, tasks, and my tasks are down here on the bottom. You can ignore the inbox. All that is a copy of any emails you might have received from the system. Doesn't let you do any work. available opportunities, that's where you would have applied for it way back in 2016. So I want to look at this task, and if I click on Open Tasks, I can see I've got one, and as we suspected, there it is, Contract Info Requested New Period for my organization, which is called Example Agency. Okay, so I could easily click on that and start working on it. But what if I didn't get the task? Well, if I didn't have any tasks here in my tasks, I can go and search for it under Applications because we applied for it, under Contracts because it's a contract, or under Tasks because contracts always are tasks for somebody. So I'm not going to bother searching for Applications, but if you go to Contracts, it looks pretty much the same. If I kept it blank, I could hit Search, and it'll show all the contracts that my organization has. And you can see I've got 3. 2 of them are executed, and the other one is in this, well, one of them is executed. That was period 1, you can see right here. And then this is period 2 of that same one. You can see with the parentheses 2 here, and the fact that it's in this Contract Info Requested New Period. So that's easy to find it if I just clicked on Contracts and searched on blank. But I could still search on more details if I wanted to. If I knew it was, you know, workforce, if I could spell it right, and hit search, obviously it'll find those same 3. But what if I want to find only the one that's in contract period number 2? I click on that, I hit search, and I find just that one. So there's several ways of you locating your contract. I could do it that way. I could also go to tasks and do the same thing. If I could look for a task, let's say you're somebody else, you're not Jeff Tester, but you want to find something for Jeff Tester. Well, I can write in Tester, which is my last name here, and I can hit search, and there's one task for the person named Jeff Tester, and he received it today because we just received it a few minutes ago, and there's that contract again. So again, 3 ways, or actually 4 ways if you wanted to search applications to get to your contract. So I'm just going to click on it now, and I'm now in my contract, and there's a few things I need to do. But notice things are going to be slightly different than what you saw your first year. First of all, on your contract main page, we can see that there was a period 1 and a period 2, and that one of them is bolded. And of course, that's the one we're dealing with, 1/1/18 to 12/31/18. So you don't want to click on the period 1 because now I'm in period 1. If I went to the Forms menu, tried to make some changes, it wouldn't allow it. Period 1 is done, or period 1 is executed. It's not in a status that we can change it. You could always modify it later, but that's not what's going to happen here. So you do need to make sure you're in period 2. All right, so if you didn't click on the period 2, it would have been bolded on period 1, and we get this problem a lot. People say, oh, I'm trying to make the updates. It's not saving. That's why, because you're looking at period 1, which is locked, not period 2. So again, you know that you're in period 2 2 ways. Number 1, the document that I'm looking at right now has the parentheses 2. And number 2, it's bolded here to tell you which one you're in. So now that I know I'm in period 2, here's that period schedule report we could look at. Just if we wanted to know the dates, I can click on it. And I can click open. And I can see, I'll zoom in a little bit, the days that we have scheduled. All right, so program manager had it. They had scheduled for 5 days. It took them 1 day, so there's 4 days left. Now it was sent to me, and we've scheduled 10 days, and I just got it seconds ago, so we've taken 0 days, and we have 10 days left. So we do want you to take care of your part of this within 10 days. And it's not 10 business days, it's 10 days. So realize, you know, there's Veterans Day coming up and Thanksgiving coming up. You kind of lose those days in the calendar. So there's nothing you have to do here. It's just letting you see what's going on with the schedule, you know, how many days do I have, that kind of information. So that's, again, this period schedule report on the contract main page. But if you've done this before, you know all the work you do is in the Forms menu. So we go to the Forms menu, and we can see a few things that stand out to us. Number 1 is this contract information. Hopefully you remember that from the first time. Number 2 is my expenditure summary, also has an error. So what's the deal with those? Well, the reason for the expenditure summary is because my year 2 budget is different than year 1, and it has inherited year 1. The reason for this, you probably remember, if I click on contract information, is it just wants you to review here. So this is my address, and if you're an organization that has several addresses entered into SFS, it doesn't know which one is right, and it's up to you to come here, select the right one, and then hit save. So in my case, I don't have anything else to pick from, so I'm just going to hit save. But if you had several others, it doesn't know what to pick. You need to make sure that you pick the right one. Now, for the most part, your contracts are all done electronically, and your payments are handled electronically, so it's not really a big deal. But this is what's going to show on the front page of the contract. Okay, so I've hit save, and that error has gone away. And that was pretty simple. I can go back to the Forms menu. Now, the bigger step is the budget. And let's just take a look at it by going down to my expenditure summary and seeing what the deal is. Now, your program manager, hopefully, when they sent you the task, hopefully they've emailed you or called you and said, hey, you've got the task, and here's what you got to do. And in this case, I'm actually not too far off. I had $44,059, but it's actually $41,047. So it's never going to let us sign this contract if what I was awarded, $41,047, is not what my budget reflects, which is $44,059. So I have to take away $3,012. So maybe you have different people in different salaries. I don't remember if you have salary or fringe on these. Maybe you have different people in contractual or different items. You know, you need to make some changes in these. So I'm going to go back to my Forms menu and fix that. So if I go here, let's say I do have something under, I don't know, contractual. And forgive me if contractual is not an item you guys would use. So let's say I do have contractual for year 2. So I'll call this contractual item 1 and info here. Now you might remember that the justification never shows up on the contract. It doesn't really matter what you write here. You might want to describe it, or you might just want to copy and paste in the second line. Or maybe a program manager says, hey, be more descriptive on your first line so it shows on the contract. And I'll write a small description here, you know, something like that. All right, so let's just say I have $2,000 here, and I'll hit save. And I've got $2,000 in this category. Again, I'm hoping you're all familiar with this. But what did I just do? I actually just increased my budget amount by $2,000, where it already was over by $3,000. So now I'm $5,012 over. And I can verify that if I go to Forms menu, down to Expenditure Summary, and we can see that now I'm $46,059 instead of $41,047. So I need to subtract some, and I'm going to do that in my operating expenses. So I'll go back to Forms menu. I'll go down to operating expenses, and this $44,059, I need to subtract 5,000 from it, or 5,012. So it's going to be 39,047. Let's see if my math is right. So that was an easy change. I can go back to my Forms menu, look at my expenditure summary, and look, there's no error. Why is there no error? Because everything matches now. I added $2,000 here, and I subtracted $3,012 here. So that was an easy one. You may have several different line items. You may have several that you have, some that you have to increase, some that you have to decrease. So it's not as simple as, you know, those 2 quick clicks that I did. But hopefully you get the point here. The point is you have to make it add up to whatever your year 2 amount was. And if there's differences, you need to describe what's new and what's different. So that also may mean that you have to go into your narrative and tweak that a bit. So if I went to my operating expenses narrative and typed in there to explain what's going on with year 2. Again, that doesn't end up on the contract, but it's something that is, you know, for our records that that are saved here, you know, kind of forever with the contract. All right, so that was easy enough. Just to recap, we did the contract information. That was just a simple save. And we edited our budget, and our budget is now in good shape. The last thing, or the next thing here, is the work plan. So again, I don't know, and if someone from health wants to jump in and correct me, go ahead. But I'm guessing you're going to need to change some of the details in your work plan overview form. This one does talk about year 1 and year 2, so maybe this one, I copied this from a real application, a real contract. So maybe this is fine, and that's good. It actually looks like it is. Although, I'm glad this one showed it. Heather did say no changes in the work plan. Okay, that's good, Heather. However, there is a bug in the system, and it's unfortunate, and it's right here. It cuts it off at 2,000 characters, even though we can obviously see that whoever did this before had more text here, because it cut it off in the word DIS. So hopefully your program manager would have double-checked that. Hopefully they would have fixed that for you, but I'm asking you to double-check it. If it shows only 2,000 characters, you know that there's a problem. What happens is when it copies it over from year 1, it chops it off at 2,000 characters. That doesn't mean you can't just keep typing and add more, but you're going to lose whatever's beyond character number 2,000. The way around it is for your program manager to copy and paste it from the old one to the new one here. It should take them, 15 seconds or so. But I do want you, as the grantee, to double check it and make sure that's fine. Okay, so Heather is telling me that there will be no changes in the work plan, so that's good. I did make a change, so I just hit save, but obviously you probably wouldn't do that. Okay, so that was simple enough, and I'm glad that we don't have to change anything because I don't have to worry about talking about the objectives, tasks, and performance measures. Okay, now the last thing you might have to do is provide us with documents. Maybe your workers' comp expired this year. Expired in 2017 or will expire in 2018, and you want to just give us the new one. Well, you can email it to them or however else they dealt with it before, or you can go here to the grantee document folder, and you can make an upload here. And here's my workers' comp, and I'll go and find a document. Okay, I found it, and I'll call it workers' comp for 2018 and hit save. So I added that to this. If I now have another document, that's fine. I can click on Add and add yet another document and another if I wanted to. These are things that are now tied with my application but do not become part of my application. Okay, so if I go to my Forms menu, we can see if I scroll down that Jeff Tester has entered something into that grantee document folder. Okay, so I feel like I've updated my contract enough that I don't have any errors, so that's a good sign, and I'm ready now to submit it back to my program manager at DOH. And just like you did before in the first round, you go up here to status changes and you do info submitted. Of course, it's called now new period info submitted. So I'll click on that apply status, and it's moved. How do I know it's moved? Well, if I look at details, it's now in a different status, Program Manager Review, new period. Remember, I had a task before. If I go back home, that task is gone. I don't even have any tasks. I still could search for that contract. It remembers what you last searched for. I can still search for that contract. I can still click on it. I can still go in the Forms menu and look at different items, but I can't make any changes. If I went to contractual and tried to change this, doesn't matter. I don't have a save button anymore. So by you sending it back to the program manager, you've locked those changes for you. Okay, so I'm going to log in as a program manager and do what they have to do and move it along so we can get it signed.
Yeah, Jeff?
Yeah.
It's Susan Mitnick from DOH. Hey, Jeff. I just wanted to mention that you were just discussing the work plan, and even though we have a year 1 and year 2 work plan in the contracts already, if for whatever reason the grantees don't meet their goals or if they've exceeded their goals, that should be mentioned in your quarterly report. But if you're making a major substantive change to your work plan, then we would have to go through an amendment. So you should let the project officer know if there are significant changes in your work plan.
Okay, so I log in. Now, I'm logging in as the same person I was before. But remember, you could have been the grantee that worked on it and now a different person that's actually signing it. So I'm Jeff, the Grantee System Administrator, and I do have a task. And of course, that task is that it's now at Grantee Contract Signature Required. So this should all look familiar to you if you were here for the first time. I just actually got an email. If you look at my email, you've just been assigned a new task in the Grants Gateway. You can access this task in the My Task section of your home page. Well, that's good. So I got a task. That's a little reminder of me. Again, your program manager or contract manager at Health might call you or email you as well. Okay, so I could search for it in other applications, contracts, tasks, or I'm just going to click on My Tasks and get to it. So if you remember from this status, I can't make any changes. I could go in here and let's say look at contractual. Again, I can't make any changes because there's no save button. So in this status, it's locked. No changes are allowed. If you notice something that's wrong, you would go to status changes. You'd probably talk to your program manager first. You go to status changes and then send it back to them in contract manager review new period. But in my case, I'm going to say everything is good. Now, how do we know everything is good? Well, you just did it. You can go through each page, or you can go down to contract versions and click on this contract, and you can see the version that you're about to sign. So what's going to happen is once I sign it, there'll be a grantee signed version, and once the agency signed it, there'll be an agency signed version. It's not going to go to the AG or OSC just because of it's a second year of a multi-year contract. So I click on this, and I click on Open. I'm looking at my PDF version of my contract. I can see the name of my organization. I can see it's a renewal because this is my second year. I can see the name of my project, which carried over from year one. I can see the addresses that I verified. I can see the dates. Now the dates might throw you off a little bit. The term and the period show the same. That's fine. We know the actual term is 1/1/20. Oh no, that's right. 2017 to 2018. The period is actually this down here, 1/1/2018 to 12/31/2018. So you can ignore that it spans the 2 years here. We know, and that's how OSC wants it. That's my amount, 85,106, which was the 2 years of 44,059 plus 41,047. And I could go through, I'm assuming you're familiar with this, all the other details of your contract are here, and then we have the signature pages, the terms and conditions, the payments and reporting, or the budget, payments and reporting, and so on. So nothing is really different here from what you looked at from your year one. But we still do want you to look at it and verify it before you sign it. So I've looked at it, I've verified it, and I want to now sign it. Easy enough. Status changes, grantee contract signature complete. So you click on that, and it has this agreement that you click on I agree. Before I do it, I want to point out a couple things. One, I do not agree would bring you back to the previous page. Two, what's going to do is it's going to sign the contract with your name and your title on it. And three, sometimes people aren't patient enough on the screen and they click away while it's still processing. So I want you to watch. I'm going to click on the button here, I agree, and I want you to watch up here in the top with the Internet Explorer icon and how it spins there. And if I click on I agree, it's now spinning. Please don't go off the page while it's spinning. Please don't hit your back button or anything like that. You need to wait it through so that it actually signs it. Now, it's not the end of the world if you do that, but it causes an error that we have to fix internally. Just wait for it to do this, refresh to this page, and now you're done. So we don't want you to hit the back button here. If you need to, you're in the contract now, you can still look at it. If you need to do something in the gateway, you can click on home. But, you know, to avoid people from getting that, it's kind of locked in an in-between status when they do that, and I have to fix it actually. To avoid people from doing that, just make sure it refreshes, and then you can move on. And that's really it. So now I've made my changes, I've signed my contract, and if once it goes through all the processes, I'll get an email, an alert that says my contract has been executed. So I can't do that now in the system, in this test system, but in reality, that's what would happen after a few days or weeks.